Let's cut through our list, and we're going to talk our top 10 receivers in college and the NFL. Let's get into it.
ATL Jacob, ATL Jacob.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chase Shantz. To my right, Brady King. What's up, Brady?
Not too much. It's been a while.
Yeah.
When we've done like a list episode, so I'm excited. It's about it. I'm just ready to get going with these lists as we approach the season and all these different previews that Chase has already been doing, and then me and Matt, or I assume Matt will be with me, in the Big Ten once we get closer and closer to training camp and media days of the Big Ten, which are coming up. But just excited to get back rolling.
Most definitely. I mean, it's that time of year where it's counting down right now. We're right around 2 months away from the start of the season. You can feel the pressure rising and everything. Like Brady said, he's gonna be doing some Big Ten previews, and hopefully Matt will be involved in those as well. So we'll see what happens with that. He's actually not here tonight because of some work things that he had going on. So he'll be back on the next episode. We're going to talk some of our top 10 running backs maybe, and then obviously our quarterbacks. So we can't get enough of that. But yes, I've been producing some of the videos of each and every NFL team, like a 10-minute video each time. But the same thing's going to be happening with Brady when he talks about, Brady and Matt talk about the Big Ten and everything. So make sure to check those out. Check out the shorts, all that stuff. You're going to be seeing a lot of content coming July, August, and especially in the fall when we hit September. So without further ado, let's talk about the top 10 receivers in both college and the NFL. Starting with college, Brady has a list. Let's get it up. Top 10 receivers in college football. Brady, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so this is obviously a really hard list because this is a prediction. Like, before I say this is what I think they'll be by the end of the season, not heading into the season, because some of these would be flip-flopped if that were the case. And there's a lot of different guys that could break out. But number 10, I have Jalen McMillan, wide receiver from Washington. I've really liked this guy ever since high school. I was really, really high on him coming into his freshman year. He was a solidly high recruit, but I just remember the first play of the All-American game. I believe it was the Under Armour All-American game. He took a slant to the end zone against a bunch of other good high school players. So you could just see the pop there, and he's very fast, a really good deep threat. I just really love him in Washington's offense. Just a great player. Number 9, I have 6'7" Johnny Wilson from Florida State. Just an absolute monster of a body to just throw the ball up to. He's pretty unguardable. Last year he had his best year yet. Transferred out of, I believe, Arizona State, I think is where he came from before Florida State. But he's really good. Definitely a weapon for them. And if I'm not mistaken, the best wide receiver in the ACC. Yes, it looks like I have him as the best wide receiver in the ACC. Number 8, I have new Georgia transfer from Missouri to Georgia, Dominic Lovett. He was Missouri's wide receiver 1 last year, and I think in this offense where Carson Beck, I think he'll be a good quarterback for Georgia this year. So I think he's gonna like Dominic Lovett a lot. I think he'll be their number 1 guy this year, and I just think with how good they are as a team, he's bound to have a really good year and be one of their better receivers they've had in a while, I feel like. 7, I have Malik Neighbors out of LSU. Last year was supposed to be Kayshon Boutte that was LSU's wide receiver 1, but Neighbors was definitely much better than Kayshon. Just very productive and made big plays in a lot of big games. Like, I believe he had some really good plays against Georgia, some plays against Bama. Just has proven it in multiple big games, and I really like Neighbors. 6, I have Rome Odunze from Washington as well. So the second Washington guy on this list. I've seen some people put him as high as like 3. I think he's really good. I just think that some of these other guys might pass him a little bit. I think he's not going to say a product of the system, but they pass the ball clearly a lot more than they run, and he gets a lot of opportunities. I feel like Jalen McMillan is actually a little bit more dangerous than him from his own team, but he's very consistent, and he's a good player to have, and I think that he's going to have a really good year once again. 5, I have Troy Franklin out of Oregon. He broke out a lot his sophomore season, which was last year, with Bo Nix throwing him the ball. Just a really, really big and physical target. Like, I don't know how tall he is necessarily, but he might look taller than he is. He definitely can play like a big receiver, and his hands are really good, and he plays physical. Makes some really good catches, and definitely one of the better receivers. Definitely the best receiver of the Pac-12, I would say. Um, although Roma Duns and Jalen are good. 4, I have Xavier Worthy. He's extremely explosive. Me and him have beef, but it's okay.
No, you guys are good friends.
Yeah, we're great friends, but he's probably the fastest receiver in college football. That is well known because there might be some random 5'8" little dude that is faster than him from Texas State or something. But there always is some random dude that I'm probably wrong technically, but he's definitely he's the fastest guy on this list. He can make some spectacular catches, like he can lay out and catch the ball, do all that crazy stuff. However, he has a drop problem. He very well could be higher on this list if he didn't drop the ball. Like he just made some really critical drops, which are not it's not good as a receiver. You got to be able to catch the ball in big moments. Clearly, like against Texas or Washington last year in the bowl game, he's the reason they lost. Like it was clear. Quinn was throwing him the ball, he just couldn't catch. But when he's at his best, he's definitely an elite receiver. At 3, I have who most people would put at 2, which is not me really docking him. That is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. He's still insanely good. Like he's definitely going into the season, like right now is the second best receiver in college football. And he's a great route runner. His hands are unbelievable, great and really good after the catch, very good catching traffic. And he really is complete. Has good size. He's 6'1". He's strong. He's big dude. He's not like a skinny receiver. He's got speed. He's got shifting. He really has it all. So that's why he's so dangerous, is that he's the definition of a complete receiver. But the only reason I have Evan Stewart, number 2, ahead of him is because I think he is the next. He's the only one on this list that's not eligible for the draft. I think he's absolutely explosive. He's a freak. He's a freak athlete, in my opinion. I think if he played for, let's say, I don't know. Let's say he played for Texas, like he was committed to, instead of A&M. And let's say, let's take Xavier Worthy out of the situation. I think he outproduces Worthy. I think the plays he made against Alabama were incredible last year. The way he would catch the ball in traffic. I mean, he's the reason they drove down the field. Their idiot quarterback, Haynes King, was like throwing the ball without looking up in the air. And there'd be 2 Alabama defenders around him. And he would go up and just pull it away from, like, the dude is a freak. Like, he had like 600-some yards last year, but in a good offense, he should. I think this year he'll have over 1,000, and he'll be a top 10 pick, I think, in 2 years. Okay. And then number 1 is the no-brainer, Marvin Harrison Jr. Everyone has him at 1. Basically, I know I said Emeka is extremely complete, but he's like the same, except he's 6'4", and is like he can do things that most people can't do at the size. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. He'd be number 1. And yeah, that's all. That's it. That's my list.
I think I remember earlier on in the spring, we made a short about that. About you were talking about the top 5 receivers under Ryan. They actually did a whole episode over it. And I remember Brady's snippet of the short was if Marvin Harrison Jr. was in the draft this year, do the Bears even trade it back? They select number 1 overall.
Yeah,
that's a great question. Whoever it is this year in the draft coming up, depending on, how Marvin Harrison Jr. does, which, 99%, he's probably going to be very, very good, the best player in college football potentially.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be number 1 overall pick, depending on who it is.
If it's like, do the Texans get a first rounder or do they not?
I don't think they do, since they traded with the Cardinals. So the Cardinals have 2. The Cardinals have 2 first-round picks. If they can go back-to-back. They can go Caleb and Marv, yeah.
Yeah, they can pick whatever order they felt like it at that point. They
exactly, yeah.
Whoever they think deserves to go.
Yeah, they could go whatever route, and they could just be like, we'll pick the quarterback and receiver. Or we could pick, Marvin Harrison. He could be the first receiver drafted number 1 overall since Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah.
Why not? And then we'll go Caleb Williams number 2, just to, really fuck with the media. So
if Kyler Murray continues to do the things he's doing, like not watch film and all that stuff, and like continue to play poorly, he'll be gone. Like it'll be those 2 as the first 2, and that'll be hilarious. Like I don't know why.
Yeah. And now I'll set aside my Kyler Murray. It's not even hate. It's like I think Kyler Murray's getting bashed on a little too much, but I think I think he's better than some of these. Some of these lists have him at like 17 or 18, but I'll save that for the quarterback episode. But let me ask you something about your list though. How far is the gap between 1 and 2?
Massive. I mean, like,
Okay, yeah,
I'm not gonna
exactly.
lie. Like, it took me. So before last season,
Mhm.
I did not think that Marvin would be like the second best receiver in college football behind Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah,
I thought he was getting overhyped in the offseason because of
yep.
his, I don't know, not his dad. I don't think that had much to do with. I mean,
Videos on the jugs machine when he was
yeah, the
running
jump
under the. It was,
machine
yeah,
and like hearing that he's a freak. It's like, yeah, but like, does that mean he'll be? That doesn't necessarily always translate. I need to see it. Then the Notre Dame game came and he looked good, but I'm like, I thought Emeka was our best receiver other than Jackson because
yep,
Jackson, rest in
yeah.
peace. Not actually, but rest in peace his junior season of college. But then you keep going and you're like, okay, never mind. Emeka's really good, but it's really not even a contest. Like this
Yeah,
dude really outperformed my expectations. Like I did not think that he would be. His speed is what people don't understand. Like he can really get off the line and run. He runs.
yeah.
I've heard he runs in the 4.3s, which is not something you think of, but I've heard he runs in the 4.3s. He bench presses 180 or 380 pounds as a receiver. He bench presses more than DK Metcalf.
Yeah, that's the definition of freaky right there. What?
Yeah, no,
Wow,
he's
wow.
he's a
I mean,
freak. Like he just doesn't. It's a guy that we're never gonna get back. Is the
yep,
sad thing. So we have to win this thing this year. Like if we don't, I mean, there's a lot of things that have been disgusted me. A lot of teams that I wish would have won, but this team with this guy, like I legitimately think nobody can cover him. Even a tall corner, because if it's a tall corner, he can't move with him. If it's a short
yep.
corner, he can't guard him on a jump ball. Like it's both. He's pretty unguardable. So, and I heard that he's moving a lot in the slot this year. We literally did not move him. We did not play him a snap outside in the spring just so he could learn the slot a little bit, so we could put him wherever. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it's the largest gap in a while for number 1 and 2 because even when there were like really good wide receivers in college football in the past, like Devontae Smith in 2020,
Yep.
you had Jalen Waddle and Garrett Wilson and all these guys that weren't like. I mean, Devontae was easily the best receiver that year.
Mhm.
That was probably the best single season that ever college receivers ever had. But the gap still wasn't as large but this year, like I said, Evan Stewart being my number 2 receiver, it's not even close. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then if Abuka right now is ahead of Stewart for me, it's just I think Stewart will be ahead.
yeah. It's
That
a
makes it even like he's on the same team and it's like not that he isn't really good, but it's still clear who's better.
yeah.
So it's a
Mhm.
pretty massive gap. It's pretty massive.
Now I'll do two more things. Who is wide receiver you for over the last 5 years? Who's wide receiver you since the 2010s?
So wide receiver you of the last 5 years would be Ohio State. Um, just the sheer amount. It would be. I mean, I know Alabama still has a good argument because they've had some good receivers. LSU obviously has had they've had 2, but those 2 have become really good. So it's like that has to weigh a factor. But the sheer amount in the past 5 years, Ohio State's trending up, and then past since 2010s, it's oh man. I mean, so I would say Bama.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say Bama slightly, but I think it's going to be Ohio State even since the 2010s. Once this next class, once Marvin and Emeka get into the league, and like JSN solidifies himself, because technically that does matter if they go on and do good things because that shows their development. I think once those 2 go to the league, I think we might have both concealed. But right now, I'll go with Bama since 2010s, and I think definitely Ohio State in the past 5.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with the past 5 years. Last 10 years, I mean, it's a toss up for a couple of different teams and all that.
Yeah,
When you look at some of the receivers and their insane production compared
yeah,
to the mass amount of receivers that like Bama or Ohio State is gone. I'll talk about the
yeah,
duo of receivers at LSU and
yeah.
Jamar and Justin Jefferson. We'll see where they fall on my list. Before we turn over to the NFL, Brady, who's your honorable mentions for college?
So honorable mentions are tough because these guys were all considered for the list. My first honorable mention is going to be A.D. Mitchell. He's literally won Georgia 2 national championships. He has had the biggest play to win them the Natty each time, and he was injured this whole season. And of course, he was healthy for Ohio State game. I just knew that was trouble
Yeah,
because I know how clutch he is, and I thought he was underrated. And of course, he catches the game-winning touchdown, which obviously still we had the chance to go down and win. But with a minute left, he catches that touchdown, and then against Bama the year before, when Bama was up 5, he caught a 50-yard bomb from Stetson to take the lead in that game, which was the win. And overall, I think he's just really, really good. We're going to really see. There's definitely a chance in my mind that he could be the wide receiver 1, even over Xavier Worthy at Texas. That will really show. So I might have him low. Definitely wanted to mention him. Other than that, I have Luther Burden out of Missouri. Out of high school, I always watched him because he was a 5-star. Number 2 receiver in the country behind what's his name? Evan Stewart. So they both lived up to the hype so far, which usually doesn't happen. Usually at least one of the top 2 kind of disappoints, but both of them had big freshman seasons, and it's clear he's going to be an absolute beast. And then my third is actually Lad McConkey from Georgia. He's had huge plays the past 2 years in the playoffs and national title. He didn't have a very good game against Ohio State, but he had a huge game in the national title, the national title against TCU.
I think everybody had a huge game in that for Georgia.
God. Brock Bowers, Ladd, Stetson. I mean, that was a joke. I just can't stress that enough. I don't think we really talked about that enough, but that was like just because
I don't think we talked about that at all. Actually, I really don't.
Yeah, our opinion is that game was a joke, and like a Pee Wee team versus a varsity high school. It was like the Northridge Bearcats versus the Kenton Ridge Cougars. I'll give you that reference, even though some people watching don't know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. It was literally a punchline. Is all we got to say for that game. But
it was.
But yeah, I mean, we don't really talk about the national championship because it's just like
it's just
really comedy. It's
I thought I was watching Georgia play Kentucky or something or Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Like their baseball team.
Actually, Kent State was way closer to beating Georgia than TCU.
Yeah, and jeez, that was an utter joke, but yeah, we're gonna shift gears into the NFL. I'll give you my top 10 receivers list. Brady's gonna react to it, see what he thinks about it. Man, so when there's so many good receivers in the National Football League, it is so tough to make a list like this. I'm going to start. I'm going to go 10 to 1. I'm going to give you the honorable mentions list. There's a lot of people. There's like 5 receivers on this honorable mention list, but there's so many more, and I'll add a couple more names that pop into my mind. But starting at number 10, we're going to give Terry McLaurin the flowers he deserves. I said in a short that I just posted a couple of days ago that Terry McLaurin is the number 10 receiver of the National Football League. So why would I go against my word and say that he's not? So, he had 1,100 yards last year, 5 touchdowns, over 70 catches. Terry McLaurin from The Ohio State University is a baller. Just like number 9 receiver on the list, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets from The Ohio State University. He had 1,000 yards last season with Mike White as his quarterback, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, the MILF Hunter. I mean, there was a lot of different guys that were throwing on the football, but Garrett Wilson just kept producing. And now he's got Aaron Rodgers, who Stephen A. Smith says he's a bad man. So we're going to see what happens when it comes to that. But, I mean, Garrett Wilson's production is obviously going to flourish. He's going to be a receiver that could get about 1,400 to 1,500 yards this season. And, he's going to be bumping up this list if all things go well for Gang Green. Number 8, CeeDee Lamb. This is a guy that really doesn't get talked about a whole lot. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just he's primarily a slot receiver. He had like 1,300 yards last season and 9 touchdowns. He's in for an even bigger year that I would say. I mean, when Amari Cooper left for the Cleveland Browns, CeeDee Lamb had a lot bigger stuff to have on his plate, and he did everything he had to do last season. Now he's got Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup's back from injury, but I still think the focal point of the Cowboys passing attack is CeeDee Lamb, and he's going to be a tough out, whether he's on the slot, whether he's on the outside, whether they're just doing whatever whatever the Cowboys offense can do with number 88. So I think 8's a good spot for him. 7, Cooper Kupp. He had one of the greatest receiver seasons of all time, capping it off with a Super Bowl ring in 2021. Damn you, Los Angeles. When I look at it, injuries plagued him last year, and I think he's going to get maybe not back up to that form, but he's still going to be the 1,000-yard guy. He's still going to have over 100 catches. He's going to be the production wizard that Matthew Stafford needs on the field. I don't think the Rams are going to be that good this season, but I know Cooper Kupp's going to be extremely well this season. So number 7, it's a little lower, but when you're talking about these top 6 guys, I mean, it's a tough thing right there. I mean, Cooper Kupp the season before was the number one receiver in the National Football League that season. Overall, he was a top 3 receiver. But, maybe he can get back up to that status in the top 5 this upcoming season. Number 6, Stephon Diggs. He's Josh Allen's best friend. He throws to him all the freaking time. Stephon Diggs, he's super quick, great route runner. I think he does a lot actually on his routes. He does. I'm not gonna say a lot of unnecessary stuff, but he's a very, very flashy receiver. He claims that he's him. I don't know exactly, but he's a great receiver on the outside. He can move on the inside. He can torch defensive backs. There's receivers out there that they're production possession receivers, but Stephon Diggs, outside of like Tyreek Hill, I would say, and Jamar Chase, he's a burner. He can burn secondaries deep, and it's pretty incredible what Stephon Diggs does in Buffalo. Number 5, AJ Brown. AJ Brown got out of the Tennessee system in 2021. For his sake, thank the Lord. Went to the Super Bowl this past season. Had a great season. Had about 1,300 yards receiving. He can run any route in the route tree, and he's just a definition of production. So, there's not much more to say about AJ Brown. I think he's going to have a great season this upcoming year. Number 4, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had an absolutely massive season in 2022. He had like 1,700 yards, something crazy. All right. So, with Tua Tagovailoa on the field, Tyreek's going to have another massive season. He's the fastest receiver in the National Football League, one of the best receivers in the National Football League. He's the best receiver that has the most speed. All right. He's an absolute burner, track star, whatever you want to call him. I think he's gotten over his days of, having 6 catches for 200 yards and then backing up with a 2-catch 15-yard game. He's very consistent nowadays, which was a big knock on him a few years back where he was just an inconsistent receiver. Now he's super consistent and he is making big plays every single game. Number 3, Jamar Chase. So maybe it's because I'm a Bengals fan, but honestly not. I actually saw a stat today looking at Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, comparing the two, obviously, since they were teammates at LSU, and they're probably going to be compared for most of their career, if not all of their career, considering the fact that they came in a year apart. Let me enlighten you on this. Jamar Chase has played 5 less games than Justin Jefferson in the regular season. He has 5 more touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, I think, averages like 90 yards a game, and Chase averages like 87. 20-plus yard plays. Jamar Chase by a mile. I'm not saying that he's better than Justin Jefferson. Look at the list. I have Justin Jefferson at 1. I'll get to that in a second. But Jamar Chase's impact on a field, it cannot go unnoticed. When he gets the ball in his hands, magic happens. And when Joe Burrow's throwing to Jamar Chase, it's almost rarely ever incomplete. It's always efficient, getting the ball to number 1 for the Bengals. So I got him at number 3. I can read all the stats. He had over 1,000 yards, this, that, and the other. But yeah, Jamar Chase, the top 3 receiver. I said in a short that he's part of the elite receiver class of I'd say 3. Him, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson. No slight on Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill is still in that class as well. I just didn't mention him in the 3. But the elite 4. Number 2, Devontae Adams. Regarded, I think, over the last 3 years until this year as the best receiver in the National Football League. He went to Vegas. Derek Carr, I don't know what happened with him this past season. He had 24-14 touchdown interception ratio. Devontae still produced. He still did everything. Just, they didn't make the playoffs. He didn't have any, he didn't have a chance to make any spectacular plays in the playoffs because they sucked, and they're probably going to suck again this year. And we don't know who the hell his quarterback's going to be, if it's going to be Jimmy G or Aiden O'Connell. So we'll talk about that another time. But number 1, Justin Jefferson, 1,800 yards receiving. He is the most important player on the Vikings, and honestly might be the most important player in the league for his team. I know Patrick Mahomes is out there, but Chad Henne could have beat the Jaguars last year in the divisional round playoffs because the Chiefs were playing that good. Justin Jefferson had 39% of Kirk Cousins' passing yards this past season. 39%. That's unbelievable. The production that Justin Jefferson is accounting for, it's almost something that we haven't seen before. And until somebody just goes up and beyond past him, no one's going to catch him. So I got Justin Jefferson at number 1. Honorable mention, T. Higgins, Cincinnati. This is no particular order. You got Higgins from Cincinnati. Jalen Waddle had 1,300 yards last year for Miami. Amari Cooper from Cleveland. I know they had played a couple different quarterbacks last year in Brissett and Deshaun Watson. Still had 1,000 yards. Devontae Smith had actually had over 1,000 yards this year. He had like 900 his rookie season. He was great. DK Metcalf had over 1,000 yards. Chris Olave had over 1,000 yards in dysfunction, and he's got Derek Carr as his quarterback now. So that's like 6 receivers right there. Keenan Allen, when he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in the National Football League. I mean, I can go on and on about this, the amount of receivers that are so good in the National Football League, but that's my list there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good list. It's very similar to what I would have. Pretty much, I would say 10, 9, and 8 might be exact what I would have, and the rest is the same guy. I think that's the same top 10. I don't think I would put anybody outside the top 10 that you didn't have in there in the top 10. So we have the same guys. The order doesn't look bad at all either. As in terms of a question, I would say, what made you put the order of Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and AJ Brown in that order?
Well, I was looking at Cooper Kupp had that injury last year, and he had a good season before he got hurt, but there was a lot of it was dependent on Matthew Stafford. Like, he wasn't going to have he didn't play with Baker Mayfield last year or whoever the backup quarterback was. I think it was Bryce Perkins for a minute.
I think it was Bryce
Perkins. So there was a couple of different random quarterbacks that he was going to have thrown to him and all that. When he got hurt, it was like week 10. And he was out the rest of the season. I don't think the Rams are going to be that good this year. And I think if the Rams were going to be that good, it was going to, go off of Cooper Kupp's success. I think teams are, I'm not going to say figure him out, but I think teams are going to have a better game plan, around the Rams offense, where it kind of takes Cooper Kupp's numbers take a hit from what they were in 2021. I still think he'll have a good season, but I think his numbers will take a bit of a hit if he completes the entire 2023 season. Stephon and AJ Brown. When I said Stephon's a burner, I still think Stephon is a little bit inconsistent at times. I think AJ Brown's a little more consistent. I think that was really the thing that came into mind there. And a lot of it's quarterback. Josh Allen's, he has more sporadicness than I would say Jalen Hurts does. Jalen Hurts seems a little more calm, cooler. He'll deliver better balls to AJ Brown. He'll make some plays off that. I know I'm talking a lot about the quarterbacks, but with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, like, I don't know. I think they're more of a hit or miss. I think I can count more on Jalen Hurts getting the ball to AJ Brown, AJ Brown making a play, than I can count on Josh Allen getting the ball to Stephon Diggs and Stephon Diggs making a play. That, part of it comes into looking at the quarterback and the production. That's why I have Garrett Wilson at number 9. I think he's still one of the best receivers in the National Football League, but with Aaron Rodgers coming into play, I mean, he's going to have some big numbers this year.
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely think that definitely matters. QB matters a lot, especially for these younger guys. Depending on the situation, you always want to get out of some of these, like the Mike White and Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson situation that Garrett was in.
Yep.
And then the top three is you said was Justin, Devontae, and Jamar. Yeah. What made you put it in that? Well, not that you put it in that order. So you said Devontae was number 1 for a while. What made you put Jefferson ahead of him?
I'm just gonna say probably the dominance that he did last year. I know Davante Adams was still pretty dominant last year, but I think Justin Jefferson was actually the reason why the Vikings won them some games last year. I know Davante Adams couldn't control some of the stuff that happened with the Raiders, but Justin Jefferson was literally the reason why the Vikings were winning some games last season. And
yeah, he definitely was.
And to account, I think that matters. So I think that matters a bit more than what Devontae was doing this past season. I think it could flop. It could switch this year. I don't know, but I think in terms of last year and what to expect for this year, I think that's why it kept me putting Justin Jefferson at number 1.
That's fair. Yeah, that's I've seen a lot of people with him at number one. So definitely not much of a hot take at the top spot. And that would definitely I'd probably put one of those two for sure at number one. Probably Jefferson after the last couple of years. He definitely deserves it over Jalen Rager.
That dude sucks. Yeah, I'll tell you. That dude sucks. Oh, shoot. All right, I'll tell you this. Also, watch out for Jamar Chase. He might take the number one spot here in a couple of years, maybe this year. I don't know. Any final thoughts or narratives you want to push before we get on out of here?
I think that's about it. I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
All right. I think Kate Stover's the greatest tight end of all time. That's awesome.
Yeah. I would push that narrative too till I died.
Yeah, sure. That goes without saying with Kate Stover. Shoot, with that being said, I'm Chase Johnson. It's Brady King. We'll see you guys next episode.